You know, it's a Monday night. I'm rigging up some tackle. I'm gonna go out fishing on a Tuesday here. Just got back from a tournament. Johnny's holding the camera there, and we noticed here in Texas, the birds are singing, the grass is growing. I haven't been around in like 3 weeks. When I left here 3 weeks ago, it was super cold. Now, spring has sprung, and that means fish are going on beds. That right there is like the springtime staple, and everyone knows it. But when fish start going on beds, it is so dangerous, especially when you're tournament fishing. So dangerous to throw an exposed hook like that. When you hook one with an exposed hook, when the fish are on beds, a lot of times you'll hook them outside of the mouth, underneath the chin. Totally not cool, you know, from a sportsman's like perspective, and definitely not cool when you're in a tournament. So with that being said, I just want to go over my top 3 bed fishing rigs that I have been using for 20 plus years. They continue to work. One of them is almost forgotten, one of them is super sneaky, and one of them just flat out catches them. And there's some of my Texas buddies are gonna get real mad at me for even mentioning this one, but let's dig right into it. But when they actually get on beds, March, April, May, depending on what time, you know, what part of the country you live in, typically around a full moon, you know, you can visually see them. They make those nice, beautiful beach ball size clearings and sand and rock, any hard bottom areas, typically in backs of creeks, marinas, dead end sloughs, and coves, away from current, away from cold water, and away from dirty water. So we want to look for kind of cleaner water, hard bottom, back ends, super back ends of things, dead ends. When we actually see fish on beds, see the bed, and you'll see one fish on it. That is the male. He makes the bed, he guards the bed, he fertilizes the eggs when the female comes in just for a little bit. And she's only there for a day or two at best, and then she takes off and then leaves everything else up to the male. You're fortunate when you see a female on a bed. She's typically larger. She's typically 3+ pounds, all the way up to 12, 13, 14 pounds. I've seen them on bed. You know, these 3 baits right here that I'm gonna go over work in every single bed fishing scenario. So let's start out with number 1. This one here, it's almost forgotten. There aren't a lot of guys that flip a tube, just going down the bank flipping a tube. It seems like these days, you know, bandito bugs are real popular, beaver style baits are real popular, and it seems like more guys are gravitating towards those creature style baits. Call me old school, but I love a tube. I love flipping a 4-inch tube, especially on a bed. There's just something about this profile right here that looks like a crawdad skirting across the bottom. Every time you pop it, it just kind of pops up and just nicely shimmies down. It just kind of glides down, and it triggers something in a bass when a bass is in and around beds. When you're sight fishing, you're popping it up, it just gives a nice flare and a glide, and that action right there is very unique. You can't get that action in any other bait other than a tube. So this is a 4-inch Guggen Baits Doob tube. It's brand new. I always like to throw it in either a green pumpkin or a watermelon red. Boom. And why that? Because it's the most natural. It looks like a bluegill. Bass hate bluegill around the spawning season. So green pumpkin, watermelon red. You can mix in some purple hues as well. I brought out a white one here. This is a 4-inch Doob tube in white. There's a lot of anglers on tour. There's a lot of you know, pond hoppers that swear by white. It's a very intrusive color, yes, especially like in the swim bait. Very intrusive, very bright, but it's more or less for, you know, the angler. For the angler to see the white tube, you flip it in there and it kind of shimmies down, and when it hits the bottom in 2.5, 3 feet of water, you can still see that bait, meaning when one picks it up, it completely disappears and you know when to set the hook. So you're either a line watcher, line feeler, or a bite feeler with the green pumpkin and watermelon red naturals, or you're a bite watcher with the white colored sight fishing bait. So I gravitate towards more towards the naturals, but you can throw in the white there if you're more confident in setting the hook when literally this thing disappears. So 5/0 EWG style hook. This is a Guggen Gold hook. This is the Mondo EWG hook, and it works really well paired with a tube. The only time I will fish an EWG style hook is with a tube. because the tube has got that hollow body there, and the EWG, which is an extra wide gap, really complements that kind of oversized, robust size of a tube. But also that EWG style, it's got that 90-degree bend right there, and it works really well when you're rigging a tube. And of course the Doob tube's got those ribs right there, so you can easily tuck away that hook point. You know, when you're fishing a bed, especially with the tube, 1/4 ounce tungsten weight here. You know, you pitch it in there, it glides nice and neatly down there, and the fish sees it, and you know, you play the game with it, you pop it, you bounce it, you play the game with the fish, it goes nose down. You do not want that hook point exposed. Again, we're trying to get away from exposed hooks, exposed hook points, because the last thing you want is to hook it in the chin or in the gill, because in a tournament, you have to throw that fish back. So I pair it with a 20-pound test Seaguar and VizX, and I just use a flipping stick, a 7'9", 13 fishing. This is an Envy Black Series, so 7'9" heavy, so that when one bites it, I give them the business, and that fish comes to the boat every single time, especially with that EWG hook. And it's not a slack line hook set. You just kind of feel it or watch it eat it, and it's just nice steady pressure, and stick them, and that fish comes to the boat every single time. 4-inch Doob tube works really well. It's forgotten about in 2023 here, but I still continue to throw a tube, and this right here is probably my favorite Texas rigged bait for bed fishing, hands down. Moving on to number 2, this one's kind of cool right here. I'm actually going to pull up a video of it's probably in the last decade, maybe the last 2 decades of professional bass fishing, especially the Elite Series. It's the biggest fish weighed in as far back as I can remember. I caught a fish in 2015 or 2016 on the California Delta where I grew up fishing. It weighed 12 pounds. Dave Mercer weighed it on the Elite Series stage, 12 pounds, and I caught it on this rig right here. It was a big fish on a bed. You know, I was idling by and I saw it over there, and I'm like, wow. And it was a first flipper. Dumped the trolling motor down, and I gave it one shake, and this 12-pounder came up and just went and ate it. So what is this? It is a Bubba shot, a power shot, a large drop shot. And why does this work so well? You know, the hand-poured purple worms were a big deal out west growing up, and still kind of mess with those, but I kind of moved on here. I like a Blue Baby Slim Shake. It's just a straight tail size, you know, style of worm, straight tail worm. It's got a kind of bulbous tail there, so every time you shake it, the whole worm moves, and it just like, it sits at eye level. That's the whole key with a power shot, is it sits at eye level. So a big 5, 6, 7, 8 pound or 12-pound female bass, when your drop shot weight hits the bottom of the bed and you shake your line, literally that worm sits at eye level with the fish. So you could shake that thing all you want and not move the weight, but just keep on shaking your rod tip and your line, and that worm will just keep on dancing right in front of that fish's face. So that's why this thing is so effective. I always use a 12 or 15 pound test, straight fluorocarbon. I like Seaguar Tatsu. It's really thin, so you get the most action out of that suspended worm right there. This is a 2/0 Guggen Gold Kraken hook. It's just a J-bend style hook with an offset in it. Works really well. And this is just a drop shot weight that I bought a long time ago. It's like a full half-ounce lead weight, and actually snipped off. There's a little trick for you. If you know you're in the tackle store or whatever at Bass Pro, you get some of these cylindrical style drop shot weights. If you buy the half-ounce ones or even 3/4 ounce cylindricals, all you gotta do is grab your pliers and just adjust the weight. Just clip off, you know, half the weight right there, and you have a nice compact style weight. But when you need that half-ounce drop shot weight, when you go smallmouth fishing, you could leave it intact. But that's a little trick for you there with the lead drop shot weight. This is a 7'3". I like a 7'3" because you could pitch it. You could pitch it around. It's not super long, cumbersome. 7'3", medium heavy. You don't need a giant rod. You know, when one grabs it, it's just a nice steady sweep of the hooks of a hook set there. And just like that other reel, this is a 13 Fishing Concept A2, and I like it in the 8-to-1 gear ratio, just because when I'm going down the bank, you know, you could take up a lot of line quickly, move it in, move it out, drop it on that bed, drop it on that bed, and just keep on moving along. So the whole key to this power shot technique when you're bed fishing, is having an extra short leader. Shout out to Aaron Martins, God rest his soul. He was one of the ones who did it first out west, and it's such a small, compact, short rig. It keeps the worm close to the bottom, keeps it close to the bed. More importantly, it stays at eye level when that fish is protecting that bed. So super short leader, 2.5 to 3 inches tops. And that is a Powershot rig. I've caught a lot of big fish, especially in the state of California, with this rig right there. So Powershot, Bubba Shot works really, really well. And then here recently, my good buddy that guides down in South Texas and the middle of Texas, Captain Rick Harris, he's been sending me photos of these fish. I won't say the lake, but the fish he's been catching with his clients, 8, 9, 10 pounders. And he's gonna get so mad at me for saying this, but you know, and it seems like it shouldn't work, because a swim bait is meant and designed to swim above the fish's head and bite in the pre-spawn phases and post-spawn phases. But when fish are on the beds and you throw something as intrusive as that right there, the color, an albino color, that size and profile, this is a 6-inch Dangerous swimmer, of course. I just did a video on this type of rigging. This is a belly style rigging, but this is just a 7/0 belly weighted hook. I like it in a 3/8 ounce, either a 1/4 or 3/8 ounce. It's a little bit heavier, so when you're pitching it to a bed, it falls a little bit quicker and it engages that tail. That's the key. If you're using an 1/8 ounce or something lighter and the tail doesn't wiggle on the way down, on the fall, you're not gonna get the bites when they're on the bed. Basically what you're after is that vibration, and you want this thing to vibrate almost like just like a big worm or a big grub or something like that, where you're pulling it up, letting it fall, and on the fall, that tail's wiggling, the head kind of shimmies a little bit, and it triggers. It triggers an instinct in a bass that, hey, this is the real thing. I mean, it's almost instinctual for them, this size, this profile, for them to just suck it in right there in front of you. So that's kind of the whole thing. And the reason why I showed you this last is because a lot of times I'll go through the tube, I'll go through the drop shot. If they're not biting that, they seem a little pressured, you whip out a 6-inch Dangerous swimmer and belly weight it just like this, and kind of feather it in front of their face and let it fall in front of their face. A lot of times they will just bear trap it, just suck it in right then and there. And with that EWG style hook, again, I mean, it's all business from there. So a lot of you guys out in California have been doing this for a long time. You wouldn't think a swim bait would catch them bed fishing, but absolutely, that size, that profile, and that vibration works really well. Not to mention, it's weedless, so when the fish are spawning underneath those trees or that limb or that patch of tules, that works really, really well. So exact same setup, exact same rig, 20-pound test in VizX or 17-pound test in VizX, straight fluorocarbon, Concept A3 reel, and this is a Muse 7'9" heavy. It's just a big, like, pitching and flipping stick is all it is. So okay, those are the 3 setups. So that is the kind of physical portion of it. The mental portion of this bed fishing that goes with all 3 of these rods and setups is patience. Like, you know, my neighbor knows nothing about bass fishing, but you know, he thinks just because it's fishing it requires patience. The only thing in my playbook in this whole boat that requires patience is bed fishing, in my opinion. And what I mean by that is you get in a cove and, you know, let's say there's 3 beds in there, and of course you want to catch all 3 of them, but don't go to the second one until you thoroughly worked on that first one. I mean thoroughly worked on it. You set the raptors down, or if you're fishing off the bank, literally sometimes just sit there, don't even pitch at it, and just kind of observe what the male and the female bass are doing. That'll tell you a lot. So I challenge you, the next time you go out and you notice a fish on a bed, don't flip right to it. Just sit there and literally time yourself and watch it for 3 minutes. Just 3 minutes of your time, that's all you need. And just watch what that male is doing. And watch what happens when a bluegill gets anywhere near that bed, or a school of shad, or shad spawn, whatever it might be. Anything gets near, another male bass comes by. Don't throw to it first, just look at it and watch. And when you make that presentation, just slow down and do things slow. And a lot of times you'll be surprised when you're fishing for that male, all of a sudden out of the corner of your eye, here comes a 6, 7, 8 pounder comes in. So, a lot of people have theories about a sweet spot in a bed. I really don't buy that. A lot of people have theories on you just have to leave it there and let it sit. Yeah, maybe, but try to find that nice blend of leaving it there and just letting it sit there right in the middle of the bed, and also shaking it. When the fish isn't paying any attention to it, maybe give it a shake, and then when it raises its eyebrow and looks over there, maybe pause it and kill it. But have fun with it, play with it, and it's really a game of cat and mouse. So keep that in mind as well. Try to plan your sight fishing trip around a full moon or a new moon. That tends to bring fish shallow, but nothing trumps a good warm up. A 2-day warm up. You get air temperatures above 70 degrees and sunshine. You better start looking in the backs of those pockets. You better rig up a tube, better rig up a Powershot, and definitely rig up a belly weighted inline swim bait, because when the fish flood the bank and start going on beds, you want to be different than the guy in front of you. You want to be different, you want to stand out, show them something different, and again, try to stay away from the exposed hooks. It's not cool foul hooking fish when they're on the beds and doing their thing. So check these rigs out. Hopefully that helps you with bait selection, and hopefully you gain confidence in this this particular set of baits the next time you go bed fishing. So there you have it. I'm gonna clean up a little bit, finish rigging here, and I'll share with you guys some photos if we catch them and get on them tomorrow when they're on the beds.